studio. My name is Daniel Verkirk, and I'm the founder of the Nonviolent System. There needs to be a change in the current systems which are teaching offensive actions and reactions for law enforcement, private security, correctional officers, and emergency room hospital staff. We have seen many situations on the news highlighting the results of improper training and reactions. These examples demonstrate two sides to improper training.
Sunday morning at 3:15, and this guard's been calling in the corridor with a desperate prisoner. With nothing to lose, the cop soon gets the upper hand in a frenzied attack. Only an alert CCTV operator on the night shift can save the officer now. Despite the beating, the warder manages to grab his pepper spray, but the knockout liquid has little effect. Luckily, the security system is working and help is rushing to the scene. It arrives just in time.
Hey, let's put your handcuffs on. You can't breathe. Let's work on the stop. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Go. I can't breathe, please.
If you've ever seen the training which is taught to law enforcement, you'll understand why these officers react the way they do. The nonviolent system does not use any offensive techniques such as striking or kicking. In many cases, violent people are out of control mentally and emotionally. Some may even be insane. In reacting with violent measures with these people, they will only retaliate with the same. NVS teaches people how to control, not escalate physical, mental, or emotional conflicts. This system will also have a great impact on costs related to violence, which include apprehension, sentencing, incarceration, rehabilitation, pain and suffering of victims, loss of productivity, health and hospitalization costs, as well as lawsuits and liabilities. The nonviolent system is also great for children and has a dual effect. It is designed to reduce bullying, aggressive reactions, while building confidence and teaching an awareness of emotional responses, which are all reflected through the understanding of cause and effect. This system is proactive in nature, as it seeks to stop violence before it occurs. You must be thinking, this all sounds too good to be true, or the training is too intensive or take too long to learn. Well, I'd like to show you a 20-minute introductory class on just how easy this is to learn. To begin teaching our defensive system, the first thing you have to be aware of is the mind. Every action, every reaction, every movement you make from any given situation is a direct reflection of your mind that shows how well trained you are and the way that you move and react. To begin teaching our defensive system, I'll use this emblem to illustrate. The first part of our four concepts is the circle of emptiness seen right in the middle. Now we imagine this emblem is on the floor in front of us, and we're standing perfectly center in the middle. We're standing in a position that allows our body weight to move forward, backwards, side to side, any directional or angles that you can without having to teeter-totter your body. Now the mental aspect of emptiness is to not think of any specific, to not think, is this guy going to hit me from this side, or is he going to hit me from this side? Is he going to kick me? What is happening here? So you must become empty in order to act and react with what is. And what is constantly changing. Now, everybody is going to say, oh, my mind is empty, I'm not thinking. But there's no way to tell that. So we have a training exercises that we utilize to help train the mind. Now, we have our training partner here. And our training partner is told in advance, if I come with this hand to strike, just move your head to the outside. If I come with this hand to strike, move your head to the outside. So as I'm constantly moving my fist from one side or the other, now I'm not trying to hit her. I'm just trying to let her become one with my motion. Because if she thinks I'm going to hit with the wrong hand, what will happen is she'll move to the wrong side, or she'll put her head straight back, not knowing what she's doing, like that. Now if she moved to this side, in a real fight, or in a real confrontation, when you're attacked, if you move to the wrong side, the attack is one mechanical motion of side to side to side. By moving to the inside, you're going to be hit with the other hand. So the most important aspect here is to empty your mind so that you're not going to think, because if you're thinking when your attacker comes to hit you, that he's going to hit you with his right hand or his left hand, and he hits you with the other hand, you will move incorrectly. And by that first movement can dictate whether you're going to be injured or be able to move, redirect, or be out of the way of the attack. So in practicing this, just moving your head is the most important exercise that you can practice, because how your first reaction is going to determine the next action and reaction. So it is most important to train your mind to become empty. Now, with the second aspect that we utilize is called directional movement lines. There was forwards and backwards and side to side, and there's also angular movement lines. Now what we practice with this is, then again, imagine you're in this circle of emptiness. You can move forward, you can move backwards, you can move to your right, you can move to your left, you can move forward diagonally, reverse diagonally, forward diagonally, and reverse diagonally. Now in practicing those directional movement lines, the foot movement that you have to realize is that if you're going to the right, you don't step with this because it makes your body unbalanced. You push off. If I'm moving to the right, I'm stepping with my right leg. If I'm moving behind me, I'm stepping with my rear leg. If I'm moving forward, I'm stepping with my forward leg. I never try to cross my legs in these motions. This is going to be really important in the overall outcome of your defense. Now, in doing so, if my opponent comes to strike me and I move my whole body out of the way, our first exercise of just moving our head is just an exercise because it takes a lot longer to move the whole body, come back to here again. She comes to punch, I move the whole body again. By me just standing here and she's coming to punch and I'm moving my head from either side, that will determine just an exercise to see how quickly I can move on those angles. But where the head goes, the body must follow. So in keeping suit with that, our directional lines will help us move out of the way. So as your opponent comes to attack and you're moving your directional line out of the way, allows you to avoid the second attack. Because if you move to the wrong side, if you came to punch me and I moved to this side, it's most likely that the second hand was going to keep, and I would know I would lose control. And if your mind is empty, and you're not thinking this side or that side, and you're reacting spontaneously, knowing that you're going to go to the outside. So as my opponent comes to attack, and I move to the outside of the strike, I can keep moving, or I can keep redirecting, just trying to push them out of the way and make my escape. It's important so that sometimes you're not sure of one side or the other side. Your mind is a bit confused. You may be in a situation where you didn't have enough balance to determine what should I do, and you'll most likely move in the wrong manner. If ever you're not sure of anything, you just go straight backwards. So if my opponent comes to strike, I just move him backwards. It gives me a bit more time before I move to the outside. I always want to move to the outside because it's safer for me. Now the third concept that we utilize in the emblem theory are these circular movement lines you can see on the outside. Now there's a directional angle on either side. Now what this represents is that I can circle this way or I can circle that way. If I'm going in a directional movement line, I can use a circular movement line this way. I can use the same directional movement line and circle this way. Now the best thing to do here is if you're being attacked, as let's say you put your hand on my chest and you're pushing me. If she's pushing me, if I move and circle this way, they'll grab behind me and pull me back, or it really won't be a good situation. So in the beginning of our emptiness, we learn right from the start, you go to the outside of the arm. By me circling this way is going to allow my body, using a circular motion, pivoting of the hips, redirecting that push or strike. If she came to punch me and I use a circular movement line, my circular movement allows me to redirect the attack. If something even got to me, somebody got so fast to punch me that it came through before I even had a chance to move, even if the punch is pushing through me and I'm using a circular movement line, the punch will be redirected. So if the punch comes from this side and I use a circular movement line, I'll redirect it. Now, a thing that could be confusing is if somebody comes to the outside of you. Now here's why the circular movement lines have an arrow on either end, because it's not always that you move and circle this way. Sometimes you have to move and circle this way, because if the punch was coming from around here, if I went and moved this way, I'd still be getting it. So sometimes we have to circle this way and get it outside from this point. Whenever we're here, you can push or you can just use that to get out of the way. The most important thing is that you're not getting hit. You're not getting controlled, because if somebody gets a hold of you, it's only to hold you there as they come to hit you or get something from you. If you're using a circular movement line, the same thing. If your opponent got a hold of you, you're using a circular movement line again, redirecting. It redirects your opponent, right? If they were holding on and they couldn't, and you think, oh, I'm not strong enough to move them, even if they stayed there, at least once you circle and come around, it will put them in a position where they can't control you. It was their own resistance that caused this. Everything is at a point where you can avoid getting hit by their other hand and escape or get away. Because the most important thing is not to be hit. So in many martial arts systems, it's a matter of hitting your opponent. Your opponent comes to get you and you come to strike me, and I move a directional movement line, and then I'm going to kick somebody or punch somebody. And in today's society, a lot of this can get you in more trouble, unless you're in a state of war. But if you're worried, not so much worried, but you don't want to be offensive, this system of defense and body movements using these 4 concepts and principles will aid you every time. So do you have any questions of any other situations that might occur from using that? Circular movement lines? No? Okay. The fourth aspect that we utilize is what people know as the sign of Yin and Yang. Now if you take away all the directional movement lines, you'll have a Yin and Yang sign. And some people look at that as male and female combined together, and there's a bit of male and female and a bit of female and male, and some people say it's two opposites joined together to become one. Now, how we utilize this in our training is the counterbalancing of force. So if force comes at you, if you use the same force in its reverse motion, it will diffuse the attack. Now, but in doing so, if my opponent came to punch me and I moved back, it would still probably be another punch and another punch and another punch. So what we try to do is, as our opponent comes to punch, I use the same type of force but off to the side. So I could, with this, the main thing of defense here is that I'm never trying to block or punch my opponent or stop them with a kick or anything like that. It's a matter of utilizing and unifying the four concepts. So the first concept is the state of mind. The state of mind is when I'm attacked, I move to the outside of the attack. The second concept is when I'm attacked, I could move off on an angle and still try to get away. Because the opponent, your attacker, will have to change sides to cross over to get you. In some situations, you might not be able to run as fast as your attacker. So you're going to have to understand if your opponent's coming to attack and you're moving off to the side, it gives you a lot more better chance to just utilize your body motion in hitting off-centering their center of gravity for motion in the opposite direction, which allows you more time to get away. If you're using the same force moving forward as your opponent comes, you're automatically going to collide. It's okay for gladiators or an interesting fight for boxers, but we never want to use the same force as our attacker to defend ourselves. Now there's some systems that want to do that. They'll say never back away, never give an inch, but we prefer to redirect energy than to attack or physically try to overpower our aggressor. Now the same situation goes for everything that we do. If an aggressor grabbed a hold of my arm, the same thing. I don't grab and I don't fight and I don't pull and stuff like that. I just know that if I move out to the outside and I use a circular motion, it's going to put me in a position to escape. If they grab me from the same arm, which is in line, the same thing. If you lock up or you freeze, this hand's coming. This hand's coming. So you can't do anything. If this hand was coming before you could get to the outside, what determines what we do is becoming one with what is. If this hand is coming, we go to the outside of that hand. Right from the start, right from the emptiness, developing the mind to understand. It's not a matter of thinking of hundreds of techniques and counter techniques. It's an understanding of the principles and concepts. The concept says, this doesn't matter. Right away, this came to grab me, I should have moved outside. If I moved outside and came in this position, it would again allow me to get away from my opponent. If they grab me here, doesn't really matter, and I wanted to get to the outside, I know that this hand is going to come to get me. So I wanted to be outside of it. If this hand happened so fast that I didn't have a chance to get outside, I still have to get to the outside of it. If I couldn't cross my hand up here to guard it, this hand came to get me, I'd still have to guard this way. Now I have a choice. I can get to the outside of this, or I can get to the outside of this. If I let this go, it's still going to put me to the outside so I can get away. I'm never really attacking. I'm rolling the energy. The energy comes to push me. As energy comes to push me, I move to the outside. If the energy did get a hold of me and actually pushed me so that it got to me, what do? I have a choice. I can go to the outside of this one or go to the outside of this one. It doesn't really matter.
as long as I don't try to stop and force and fight something. The whole concept here is we're going to train our mind to become empty. Understand the principles and concepts of the directional movement lines combined with circular movement lines combined with the counterbalancing of force. So some people, if my opponent grabbed me and pulled me in, when they pull you in, you go with it. Instead of, if they're pulling backwards, you don't pull backwards because the counterbalancing of opposite force isn't utilized there. If they're pulling backwards, you're going forwards. And by going forwards and moving into a circular movement, it allows all that energy that they're using to be redirected. If there's any situation here, or every situation, anything that you could think of, from somebody coming to kick you, or if they're, even if they grab me from behind. In grabbing me from behind, again, I want to be on the outside, right? It's easier for me to get to the outside of this one to try to get away. Or if I couldn't get down this way, I may get to the outside this way to get away. But I don't have to think of the technique, I just have to think of where I have to be. It's easier for me to know that where their lead leg is, I want to be outside of that. I can't go to this side, there's going to be too much control over this side. I know where I have to be. That's the key point. It's not a matter of understanding a million techniques or even 20 or 30 techniques. It's a matter of knowing I got to be on the outside of their arm. How am I going to get there? If they're pushing down on you, you can go with the down force. If they're pulling back on you, you can go with the back force. But they give you the force. The concept is to understand how to utilize your attacker's force to work for you rather than against you. Because as soon as people freeze or get out of not know what they're doing in every situation, they're going to end up in a compromising position. It's not a matter of freezing. It's a matter of learning to go with what is, to go with the force and redirect it. And which way do you redirect it? You redirect it so that you get to the outside. So the concepts and principles are rather easy.
Get to the outside.
Get to the outside. So there's much more, but this is just a basic introduction to it. The concepts and principles are always the same. There's just, as you're training a group of people, many people have different questions of, well, what happens if somebody grabbed you this way, or what happens if they grab you from the choke here, what happens if they grab you in a bear hug from here? There's all going to be questions like that. And some people can't see how you redirect that force and energy. And that's why it's good to have a trainer to go through different possibilities. That's what we talk about in the probabilities of attack. So in knowing these four concepts and principles is a great beginning. So what do you think about the system?
Well, that was a blast from the past, but the system is so good, we've never had to change it. Now that you have seen just how easy the system is to learn, you will truly realize the benefits. Please join our campaign and help inform, educate, and implement NVS. Together, we can make a difference in promoting nonviolence for our society.